Our interview today is with Jo Ragsdale. In the first half of her life, Jo covered an awful lot of the United States of America in her 44 and a half years. She was a daughter of a minister, so she moved a lot, and she also was the wife of an engineer. So she spent that part of her life moving a lot too. But eventually she came to Oklahoma, and she likes it here very much, and so she calls this home. Jo is a very busy lady, and she likes to stay busy. She loved teaching school, and she loved being a principal in a school too. But and she loves working with the children in the church, does an awful lot of volunteer work, and really just loves being with people. So we're going to hear from Jo now. Well, and her real first name is Carol, with 2 R's and 2 L's. But we're going to call her Jo, because that's what everybody else calls her too. Well, Jo, it's good to see you today and have this conversation with you. So let's start from the very beginning. So where were you born and raised?
Well, I'm a PK, you just said that. And I was born in Houston, Texas, and my dad was a preacher down on the Gulf Coast. And he and my mom had to take me back from Houston to that little bitty town, and that's where we lived for a long time, down on the Gulf Coast.
Okay. So, but where else did you live when you were being a PK?
Well, that's the tradition of the Methodist preachers. They move them all over, so you never know where you're going to be. So we were all over Texas, but mostly in East Texas, but a lot of years in Houston also.
Oh, right.
So,
where did you go to school? You went to school then?
well, I did, but
mostly Texas.
I went to so many schools. I have no lifelong friends because we moved too often. You know, in those days, preachers only stayed maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they were off somewhere else to a new church.
Do you have siblings?
None. I was the only child.
Oh, okay. So then, but you decided to go to the University of Denver.
I did after I graduated from high school. I went to the University of Denver, and my dad decided that he wanted to go back and get an advanced degree. So he went to ILIF, and ILIF was on one side of the quad, and the University of Denver was on the other side. So they shared a campus. So we both went to college at the same time. And he got a master's, I got a bachelor's.
Okay. And so what did you study? What was your major?
I did theater and speech.
So did you use your theater degree at all when you?
I did. While I was in college, I did a lot of acting, and I did a lot of storytelling, for different groups, or I had a storytelling hour at the Denver Public Library, and, did a lot of PR stuff, storytelling.
Well, and you, you did a lot of church volunteering for your whole entire life, really.
Well, later.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Much later after I got out of college.
All right.
But in college, I was part of the Methodist Student Foundation. In those days, in the 50s, that was a big part of the church program. And so we just had a wonderful group. We all went to the university together, and our church was right across the street from school, in a block from our apartment, my family's apartment. And so we got a little drama group started in that MYF. And we went to the mountains and put on plays. We went to college campuses, and they were all religious dramas in one act. And they were just great. We had such a good time. It was, and our church, the little church, was very supportive. And the preacher was a wonderful, wonderful man. And many years later, he came to the church where I worked. and he was my preacher and my boss, which was kind of odd because I always admired him so much when I was in college. It was a real wonderful.
Did you write those? Now, you didn't, my understanding is you all kind of worked together to put the plays together.
We did.
And practice and then put them on.
And the university was generous, and they let us borrow costumes, and props and
Well,
things
it was
that
good
we
they
needed.
had a stock of them.
Oh,
on hand.
yes. Yes, they had plenty of.
So
things
how,
going.
and I think these were mostly religious.
Oh, they
or,
were. They were.
You know.
Or they all had a message. Let's
Right.
say that they just all had a message. But because of that group, that's how I met my husband.
Yes.
Because there was a hayride, and somehow he was in the Air Force at the base in Denver, and somehow he found the church and the hayride, and I found him, and so we got married the next year. And by the time I graduated and he got discharged, we had 2 children. And
Okay.
so that was when we started our merry-go-round, the next merry-go-round of moving around.
And where did you, now you lived in more than Colorado than when you got married. In fact, you moved, didn't you?
Yes, we lived in Colorado when we got married, but when he got out of the service, we moved to California, and he went to work for the Atomic Energy Commission, and it was a time of great new technology, and he had great experience. So that his experience led to many different jobs. So we went from California to Oregon, from Oregon to Missouri, from Missouri to New Jersey, and then back to California.
Well, and it was kind of an interesting time in California. You said you're around San Francisco area.
Yes, we were on the peninsula.
The famous Haight-Ashbury.
Oh, it was during, the last time we lived there, it was during the Haight-Ashbury days.
Yeah.
And a lot of drug issues, and, there were so many social problems then. And they began to cut down the orchards, and it was a horrible, I thought it was a horrible time. So after 20 years of marriage, when we got a divorce, my 2 oldest kids were already married, and I had 2 younger ones. So we decided we've got to go somewhere. So I sold the house, and we came to Oklahoma City, because my dad was at St. Luke's Methodist then as the minister of evangelism. So it was the right place for us to come and be home with family.
And you felt right at home. And then what did you?
And then I went to OCU, and I just went to OCU, and I worked on a master's, and I got my master's, but I also was teaching at the university in the reading clinic then. And then when I did my student teaching, I got hired as a teacher midway through my student teaching, and ended up being principal.
And this was a private school?
It was private school.
What was the name of the school?
It was New World School.
Well, and my understanding is that since you have moved to Epworth, you have found some people, some parents of kids that you taught.
I have.
And they have knocked on your door.
They knocked on my door, and I have to look up to them because I had them in, one was in 1st grade, and her brother, I believe he was in 3rd or 4th grade when I had him. So yes, it's interesting to see them all grown up. And then one of the teachers that I taught with has her mom in assisted living, and so she comes and knocks on my door too.
But so it's a small world.
It's a small world.
Yes.
There are a lot of the preachers' wives that I've known for years too. So it's nice to see those.
So you have 4 children and then and a few grandchildren?
Yes, when the 2 are born in June, I'll have 17 great-grandchildren.
And and about 14 grandchildren is.
Yeah, this is only part of the children. This was Thanksgiving, and all of these people, except for 4, stayed in our house. We had them in every room and on the floor and, blow-up beds.
How many were there?
Well, there were, there were 5 families, I believe, altogether, but all those kids. So, interesting. But I thought that you might like to see
Yes.
how many
Well,
there
we
are.
will want to put that on display. So now, and you have a daughter that is lives here.
Yeah, I do. My youngest daughter lives here, and she lives in my house. And she's paralyzed. And so when my daughter then and her husband that I was living with up here moved, I decided to stay here so I can be with the youngest daughter. Because she needs family support, to get through this. It was an accident, a surgical accident. So
She had an accident, not quite a year ago.
No, it hadn't been quite a year. So anyway,
After surgery?
It was a result of getting her spine nicked. So she's only 61, and so it's some days are really gloomy for her, and some are just good. So anyway, we do what we can to support her.
All right, so you have continued to do a lot of volunteer work.
Yes, for about 8 years I was in charge of the Friday school at St. Luke's. You can tell everything kind of spins off Methodist. So, but it was a senior program that lasted for over 50 years.
Yes.
We had all volunteer teachers, and it was really a wonderful outreach in the community. So I was dean of that, and took care of managing the classes. Finding volunteers and doing all that.
I think when they see you coming, they think leadership, chairperson.
Well, it's fun to, and my closest friends I made at Friday school, and we still have a group that meets on Friday. It's the tag end of what's left. It's quilters and knitters. So it's fun. But the best mission work I did was St. Luke's started a church in Ulyanovsk, Russia. And I didn't go on the first mission trip because I knew a lot of missionaries growing up. They used to stay at our house, and some of them were kind of strange, and I didn't ever think I'd be a missionary. But I did go, and I've been 4 times on mission to Russia, and it was a life-changing experience. I stayed in the homes, and we still do Zoom calls about, every 6 weeks or so, and we see our old friends. And one of the little girls that was in our first Bible school over there is now the preacher. So it's been a fun thing to see the church evolve and leadership change. It's been very exciting.
So, and what about your hobbies?
Oh, you know what? I wore this to show you. This is, I like to bead. It's tedious, but it's rewarding to me. So I made this, and I brought this to show you. It's I think it fell off, but this is a Christmas. It's a Christmas ornament, and it's the 12 days of Christmas. And and I just finished that, and I finished it too late for Christmas for this year, but it's ready for next year.
That's gorgeous.
Anyway.
So do you put a tree up?
Well, I did, but now I just set them on the cabinet.
Well, you've got at least one ornament.
Yeah. Oh, I have more. I've made many of them.
What brought you to Epworth, Joe?
Well, when my kids got ready to move back to Oregon, I had to find a place to live. And oddly enough, before they built Epworth Villa, my mom and dad bought into Epworth Villa. But then they decided that they needed to stay at home because my grandmother lived with them. And so they stayed home. So they would be surprised that I ended up here. But it's a wonderful place. It's like my daughter and my son-in-law say, it's like a cruise ship with no destination.
That's what my daughter says. But, well, and you enjoy community, and you like to do volunteer work with other people, so you do like to be around people.
I do.
I think you fit in wonderfully well here, Joe.
Our hall is, I know everybody says their hall is the best hall, but our hall is so friendly, and I really lucked out. And today, when they did the egg blessing, I just walked out my patio and went right out to the gazebo area to see the swans get blessed.
Bless the swans' eggs get blessed. Yes.
I spend way too much time watching the swans.
But how entertaining they are.
They're
it just
wonderful.
makes you feel calm too.
Well,
thank you so much for sharing with us, and I know you still are doing a lot of volunteer work. You like to stay busy.
I do love to sleep in, and tomorrow I'm going to sleep in because I've been up every day this week really early.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with
Marilyn.
us.
Thank you. And I enjoyed our visits to get ready.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.